The shuttle Asterion broke through the crimson storm belts of Kesherix. Like a shard of steel cutting silk, lightning forked across the planet's upper atmosphere, painting jagged veins of light across the viewing port. As Commander Alara Dane leaned forward in her seat, her reflection stared back, a face carved by too many campaigns and too few nights of peace. Short-cropped auburn hair framed sharp gray eyes, and beneath the crisp lines of her Federation uniform, scars told stories no metals could. Kesherix was unlike any world she'd seen. The clouds weren't clouds at all, but airborne life forms, bioreactive colonies drifting in the stratosphere, pulsing with faint bioluminescence. Below them stretched endless jungles of glass-leaf trees and singing vines, all threaded with rivers that glowed faintly blue in the dawn light. From orbit it looked beautiful. Up close, it was alive, in a way Earth never had been. Touchdown in 6 minutes, Commander, came the pilot's voice over the comm. Copy that, Alara replied, shifting in her harness. Her fingers tapped nervously against her thigh, a habit she'd tried to break since her days in the Marine Corps. This wasn't a combat drop. Not this time. The assignment it had been to standard months since the Federation and the Kishri Dominion signed. The Pact of Varen, ending decades of mistrust and border skirmishes. Humanity and the Kishri, once wary rivals, were now fledgling allies, united against the encroaching power of the Vor Syndicate. But treaties written on parchment meant little without trust written in blood, sweat, and shared purpose. That's why Alara had been chosen officially. Her assignment was simple: train a brood of young Kishri, the next generation of their warrior caste, in coordinated tactics and interspecies cooperation. Unofficially, it was much more. Prove that humans and Kishri could learn, fight, and thrive together. If she failed, the fragile alliance could fracture before it began. No pressure. The shuttle descended through a layer of mist that sparkled like powdered diamonds. As it broke free into the clear sky below, Alara caught her first glimpse of the Xanthi Academy of Symbiosis, a sprawling complex of biodomes and crystalline spires built into the side of a colossal cliff. Rivers of liquid light cascaded down from its terraces into the jungles below. Even from here, she could sense the hum of life, a telepathic thrum that tugged gently at the edge of her consciousness. The Kishri called this place the heart of the Pact. First contact. A delegation awaited her on the landing platform. They stood in disciplined formation, 5 towering Kishri warriors in obsidian armor, their wolf-like forms both elegant and imposing. Crystalline spines jutted from their backs, pulsing with soft inner light, and their eyes, bright and multifaceted, tracked her every movement. As the shuttle ramp lowered with a hiss, Commander Alara Dane boomed a deep voice, resonant as a cathedral bell. "Welcome to Kesherix." The speaker stepped forward, High Packmaster Dren, leader of the Academy and one of the most respected figures in Kishri society. He was enormous even by their standards, nearly 3 meters tall. His mane of crystalline quills shifting colors with his mood, from deep indigo to a calm, steady silver. "An honor," Packmaster Alara said, offering the traditional Kishri greeting, a clenched fist to the heart. Dren returned it with a nod, his luminous gaze studying her. "They say you have trained soldiers across 5-star systems," he said. "They say you have faced the Syndicate and lived." "I've had my share of battles," Alara replied. "But this will be a new kind." Dren's lip curled slightly, the Kishri equivalent of a smile. "Indeed, follow me." The younglings await. The training Damath corridors of the Academy were alive. Biotech walls pulsed gently like veins, and light shifted as if guided by thought. Alara had worked with dozens of alien species during her career, but nothing like the Kishri. Their entire civilization was an extension of their biology, an organic network shaped by centuries of evolution and communal will. As they walked, she sensed faint mental whispers brushing against her mind, not words, but impressions, curiosity, excitement, suspicion. The Kishri were highly telepathic, and though they respected human privacy, their young often lacked subtlety. The training dome opened before her like a cathedral. Its ceiling was a transparent lattice, revealing the twin suns rising over the jungle canopy beyond. The floor was a vast expanse of synthetic terrain, hills, ravines, obstacle towers, and moving platforms designed to challenge agility and coordination. And there they were, 24 cubs, ranging from knee height to nearly her chest. Their bodies sleek and luminous, their spines still soft and translucent. They wrestled, leapt, and tumbled in chaotic play. Their psychic signatures a storm of untamed energy. Are they aware of what's happening? Alara asked quietly. They know a human trainer is coming, Dren said. They do not know what that means. Alara took a deep breath. Guess we're about to find out. The moment she stepped forward, the shift was instantaneous. The cubs froze mid-motion, every head snapping toward her. The air itself seemed to thicken, charged with expectation. For a heartbeat, no one moved, not the cubs, not the adult Kishiri, not even Elara. Then it happened. A ripple of recognition pulsed through the pack, not fear, not aggression, but something older, deeper. One cub yipped, then another, and before Dren could speak, the entire group broke into a sprint. Silver bodies flashed across the dome floor, paws skidding, tails high. Alara's instinct screamed brace for impact, but she held her ground. The first cub reached her and leapt, not at her throat, but into her arms. Another pressed its head against her leg, purring with a vibration that resonated in her bones. More followed, circling her, climbing over each other to get closer. Their minds a whirlwind of joy and curiosity. Warm, safe, familiar. Packed out the thoughts weren't hers. They were theirs, flowing into her like water into a vessel. They had accepted her, instinctively, instantly. From the platform, Dren's eyes widened, a rare crack in his stoic composure. By the stars, they have never done this, never. Alara looked up, bewildered. Is that bad? It is unprecedented, he said slowly. They see you not as stranger or teacher. They see you as one of their own. New beginnings. Cubs didn't leave her side for the rest of the morning. Wherever she walked, they followed, forming a shifting silver tide at her heels. When she spoke, they listened. When she knelt, they pressed against her legs. Even when dismissed for feeding, several lingered stubbornly, refusing to leave the human who had somehow become pack in the span of minutes. That night, as Keshirix's twin moons rose over the jungle canopy, Alara stood alone on a balcony overlooking the academy grounds. The stars above were unfamiliar, but she felt more connected to this place than any battlefield she'd ever known. Her mission had just begun, and already the rules had changed. She had come here to teach, to shape young warriors for a future alliance. But something deeper, something older, had taken root. For the first time in years, Alara felt something she hadn't dared feel since the war. Hope. And deep within the training dome, 24 cubs dreamed of their new packmate, the strange, fragile creature from the stars, whose heartbeat now echoed alongside their own. The mornings on Kesher the Ninth began in silence, a silence not of emptiness, but of breath held, as if the whole world was waking carefully, reverently. Dawn light filtered through the biodome's transparent lattice, painting the training grounds in hues of gold and indigo. Commander Alara Dane was already awake when the suns rose. She stood barefoot on the polished floor of the dormitory balcony, a mug of steaming Ko3 tea warming her hands. The jungle canopy below was alive with sound, distant howls, birdsong like chimes from creatures she couldn't name, and the faint whisper of rivers flowing beneath the trees. It reminded her of Earth, of home, and yet she had never felt more foreign or more welcome in her life. First lessons today. We begin, announced Packmaster Dren as the cubs assembled on the training floor. His voice carried across the dome like a low drumbeat. For centuries, we have trained our young by the instincts of the pack. Today, we will add to that the methods of humankind. 24 pairs of luminous eyes turned to Alara. Some glowed with curiosity, others with challenge, most with a strange, unspoken trust, the kind that cannot be taught. Alara stepped into the circle. "Good morning," she said, raising her hand in greeting. "Or whatever counts as morning for you." A ripple of amusement pulsed through the group. They felt her humor even before they understood the words. It was a small but telling sign of how close their minds already were. The first few sessions were simple. She started with basic exercises, group coordination, obstacle navigation, follow and hold commands. They were techniques honed over centuries on Earth, adapted for soldiers and serve as animals. But with the Kishiri cubs, they needed translation. Run, she commanded, signaling toward a low wall. The cubs scattered, half leaping the wall with flawless grace, half tumbling over it in chaotic enthusiasm. "Good start," she muttered, suppressing a smile. "They respond to intent more than language." Dren observed from the sidelines. "Words are for your comfort, not theirs." Alara nodded. She'd suspected as much. The Kishiri were deeply empathic. Their telepathic sense wasn't just reading thoughts, but resonating with emotions, decisions, and even memories. Commands didn't need to be spoken. They needed to be felt. Rith's Leapt the third week. Alara began pushing them harder. The day's exercise was one of trust and courage, a 4-meter leap across a simulated ravine. Most of the cubs cleared it effortlessly, bounding from one platform to the other with joyous confidence. But one lagged behind Rith, the smallest of the brood, with fur the color of winter clouds and a faint, golden glimmer in his eyes. Rith had been shy from the start. Where others wrestled and boasted, he watched. Where they leapt, he hesitated. It wasn't weakness, it was doubt, deep and heavy, coiled around his instincts like chains. He stood at the edge of the platform now, trembling, staring at the gap as if it were the edge of the world. "Go, Rith," Alara said gently. "You can do this." He didn't move. The pack's collective mind rippled with frustration and impatience. Several cubs yipped encouragement. One barked a sharp "come on," but Rith only shrank back. And then Alara understood. Words weren't enough. Commands weren't enough. He needed something deeper. She knelt at the edge of the platform, closing her eyes. "Show him," she thought. "Not what to do, but how it feels to do it." A memory surfaced, vivid, raw, real. She was 17 again, standing at the open hatch of a dropship over the Martian desert, wind tearing at her suit. It was her first high-atmosphere jump, and she was terrified. Her hands had shaken. Her breath had come shallow and fast. And then she jumped, and the fear didn't vanish, but it became fuel. It became flight. She let Rith feel it, every beat of her heart, every pulse of adrenaline, every ounce of courage born from fear. His ears perked, his pupils widened. And then, without a sound, Rith leapt. He sailed across the ravine, his landing clumsy but sure. A cheer exploded through the pack, yips, howls, and a wave of joyous emotion that washed over Alara like sunlight. "Very good," Dren rumbled. "Very human," Alara smiled. "Or maybe just very alive." The bond deepens from that day forward. Everything changed. The cubs no longer responded to simple orders. They anticipated them. They didn't just follow Alara's commands. They followed her intentions. A flicker of thought, a shift in emotion, even the faintest image was enough to guide them. And it wasn't one way. Alara found herself sensing their moods before they acted, predicting their movements as if her body and theirs were extensions of the same will. It was intoxicating and a little frightening. At night, she studied old mission logs and xenobiology reports, searching for explanations. What she found instead were myths, stories from Kishiri oral tradition, passed down through millennia. The first pack was not born, it was chosen. A soul does not join the pack by blood or bond, but by resonance. To walk beside another, you must carry their heartbeat in your own. She read the words again and again. Somehow, she and the cubs had crossed that threshold. They weren't trainer and trainees anymore. They were pack, confronting skepticism. Everyone was pleased. One afternoon, as Alara reviewed training logs, she found Packmaster Dren waiting in the observation deck. He was not alone. 2 other elders, lean, imposing figures with crystal spines as black as volcanic glass, stood beside him. Their expressions were unreadable. "This level of connection is unusual," said the elder on the left. "Even among our own, it is unnatural," added the other. "Our young risk losing themselves in the alien mind." Alara's jaw tightened. "They're not losing themselves. They're expanding." "So am I, you misunderstand," the first elder said. "The pack must be whole. If they become dependent on you, they will never lead." Or, Dren interrupted calmly, "They will learn to lead differently." The elders exchanged a glance, then left without another word. Dren turned back to Alara, his gaze thoughtful. "They fear what they do not understand," he said. "And perhaps they fear that the future will not belong to the old ways, do you?" Alara asked. The Packmaster's crystalline mane shifted from deep blue to soft silver. No, I believe the future is already here. Pack night. That night, Alara was awakened by soft scratching at her door. When it slid open, she found Rith there, and behind him, the entire brood. They padded silently into her quarters, circling her bed, curling up in a heap of silver fur and warm bodies. Why? She asked silently. The answer wasn't words. It was a feeling, contentment, belonging, a simple truth woven into their shared thoughts. Pack sleeps together. She lay awake for hours, listening to their steady breathing, feeling their dreams brush against her mind like waves against the shore. In those dreams, she was no longer an outsider. She ran with them through the forests of Kesherix, hunted with them beneath the moons, fought beside them beneath alien stars. For the first time, she realized something profound. She hadn't come here just to teach them. They were teaching her too. A new language. Weeks passed, and their communication evolved beyond anything the Academy had anticipated. Commands became unnecessary. Strategies emerged from intuition. Even complex maneuvers could be coordinated without a single spoken word. One day, during a particularly difficult obstacle course, Alara and the cubs executed a flawless three-tiered assault pattern, something that would take human soldiers months to master. When they finished, Dren stood in stunned silence. "Do you see what you have done?" he asked quietly. "I didn't do anything," Alara said, brushing dust from her uniform. "We did." The Packmaster's eyes gleamed. "Then the age of the Vanguard may truly come to pass." "Vanguard?" Alara repeated. "It is an ancient word," Dren explained. "A warrior who is not born of the pack, but becomes one. A guardian who bridges species and spirit. Until now, it was only a story." He looked at her and the cubs, now circling her with bright, eager eyes, tails swishing in perfect synchrony. "But perhaps," he murmured, "it is a story whose time has come." That night, as Alara stood once more on the balcony under the twin moons, she felt a presence behind her, not one, but many. The cubs had followed her again, silent and watchful, their shared thoughts humming softly in the back of her mind. She realized then that she was no longer just a commander, not just a teacher. She was Packmother. She was Vanguard, and though she did not know it yet, the bond they were forging would soon face a trial more dangerous and more transformative than any training exercise could prepare them for. At night, bioluminescent clouds drifted lazily across the horizon, their colors shifting from amethyst to emerald, painting the heavens in living light. Twin moons cast a silvery glow over the jungle canopy, and the rivers below glittered like veins of liquid crystal. For all its savage wildness, the planet radiated peace. That was why Alara noticed the wrongness immediately. She was in the training dome with the cubs, running a high-coordination exercise, a three-tiered assault drill meant to simulate multi-vector strikes against a moving target. The pack had grown frighteningly efficient. They flowed as one, anticipating one another's moves, reacting before commands were given. But midway through the drill, every cub stopped. 24 pairs of luminous eyes turned skyward, ears flattening, tails stilling. A low, uneasy hum rippled through their telepathic bond. Confusion, then dread. Rith whimpered softly, pressing close to Alara's leg. "What is it?" she whispered. The doors to the dome burst open. Packmaster Dren strode in, his crystalline spines bristling with deep crimson light, the color of alarm. "Training ends now," he barked. "All cubs to the inner chambers. Commander Dane, with me." Alara's stomach tightened. "What's happened?" "An incursion," he said grimly. "A fleet has dropped from warp and system. No transponder signals. No diplomatic hail, Vor." Alara breathed. "Most likely." The word tasted like ash. The Vor Syndicate, slavers, raiders, and scavengers of civilizations, had been humanity's enemy long before the Kishari ever knew them. They thrived on chaos and weakness, and nothing would cripple the fledgling alliance faster than a massacre at the heart of its most sacred academy. "How many ships?" she asked, strapping on her utility gauntlets as they moved toward the command spire. 17 war skiffs, possibly more cloaked. They bypassed the outer sensor net using stolen Federation codes. Her blood ran cold. "They knew we were here. They came for the cubs," Dren said. The youngest of the bond line are valuable prey and powerful weapons. The Breach Academy's defenses were formidable. Shield arrays woven into the very rock of the cliffs. Plasma turrets hidden beneath the jungle canopy. Fighter squadrons ready to scramble. But the Vor were cunning. They didn't launch a direct assault. They slipped through. One ship, just one, broke formation and dove into the lower atmosphere. Its signature was masked, its hull disguised as Kishiri transport. By the time ground defenses recognized it, it was too late. Impact imminent. A voice shouted from the command deck. Alara watched the display screens as the ship plunged toward the Academy. Its thrusters cutting at the last moment. It didn't crash, it landed. And from its hull, armored boarding pods launched like bullets, slamming into the lower levels. "They're inside," Dren growled. "They're coming for the dome." "The choice evacuate the cubs," Alara said automatically. "Get them to the deep sanctum." "We are trying," Dren said, but some of the brood refused to move. "They will not leave without you." Alara's heart stuttered. "They're just cubs, they are pack," he said simply. "And the pack does not flee without its heart." The words hung in the air. She knew what they meant. She had taught them to be brave, to stand together, to trust her dot. If she ran now, she would break that trust forever. "Then we stand together," Alara said. Dren's crystalline mane pulsed once, a signal of respect. "Then we stand." First blood first for breach the training dome within minutes. They were insectoid bipeds, their armor a patchwork of scavenged plating. Their weapons crude but deadly. Plasma cutters hissed as they sliced through the dome's reinforced entrance. A dozen poured in, snarling in their guttural tongue. "Stay behind me," Alara hissed, drawing her sidearm. The cubs circled her, teeth bared, spines raised, minds burning with righteous fury. The first Vor charged. Alara fired twice, dropping it with precision shots to the chest plates. The second met a different fate. 3 cubs leapt onto its back, tearing through armor and sinew with terrifying coordination. They were faster than she expected, smarter, more ruthless. And yet, they moved not as wild beasts, but as soldiers, weaving around her, protecting her flanks, covering her blind spots. They were no longer trainees. They were a unit. Left. Rith's thought slammed into her mind, not words, but raw instinct. Alara spun and fired, dropping a raider that had slipped behind cover. She barely had time to breathe before the next wave poured in. "Fall back to the central platform," she shouted. "We hold them there." The pack obeyed instantly, reforming into a defensive arc. Plasma bolts scorched the air, deflected by kinetic shields embedded in the dome's walls. Alara crouched behind a barrier, reloading, heart hammering. "Status?" She called over comms. "Outer defenses holding," came the reply. "But more pods inbound. They're targeting the young. Not if we stop them first." The Stormbreak's second wave was larger, 20 raiders, armed with heavier plasma throwers and graviton nets designed to capture rather than kill. They crashed into the dome like a tidal wave, overwhelming the barricades. "Scatter," Alara shouted. "Form pack clusters, flank and encircle." They moved like water, splitting into triads, darting between obstacles, harrying the Vor from all angles. A raider raised a net cannon, and Rith launched himself from above, jaws clamping onto the creature's wrist. The weapon misfired, entangling two of its own. Another Vor swung a plasma blade toward Alara. Before it struck, a cub rammed into the raider's knee, toppling it long enough for Alara's countershot to find its mark. They were winning, barely, but the cost was rising. Several cubs bore burns and gashes. One lay limping, unable to stand. Alara's chest tightened. They were too young for this, too small, too precious, but they were fighting for each other, and so was she. The turning point just when it seemed the tide might turn, the dome doors exploded inward. A towering Vor captain stepped through, nearly 3 meters tall, clad in black exo-armor, its clawed gauntlets glowing with kinetic charge. "Take the Alpha," it hissed in trade common, its mandibles clicking. "The rest will break." Its gaze locked on Alara. "Come and try," she growled. The captain charged, each step shaking the floor. Alara dove aside as a massive claw slashed through the air, carving a deep gouge in the wall. She fired her pistol. The shots glanced harmlessly off its shields. Need a plan. Need more than bullets. The cubs swarmed, biting and clawing, but the captain batted them aside like insects. One was thrown against a pillar with a sickening thud. Rage flared white-hot in Alara's chest. Together, she shouted, but it wasn't just a command. It was a bond-call. 20 for minds flared as one, converging on hers. Thoughts, instincts, memories, they all merged into a single surge of will. Alara felt them, their speed, their strength, their courage. And they felt her resolve, her tactics, her precision. They moved as one. The captain lunged. Alara ducked under its strike and rolled aside. 3 cubs hit its left leg. 2 more leapt for its head. Alara fired again, not at the armor, but at the power conduits exposed by their attacks. Sparks exploded. Shields flickered. Now, she roared. Rith leapt, teeth sinking into the captain's throat joint. The creature screamed, stumbling backward. Alara seized the moment, driving her combat blade through the armor's neck seam. The captain collapsed with a shuddering crash. Silence. Then, a howl, low and fierce, rose from the pack. One by one, they joined it, their voices merging into a single, triumphant roar that echoed through the dome. The aftermath be dawn. The Vor were gone. Most were dead or captured. The fleet retreated under heavy fire from Kishiri and Federation reinforcements. The academy stood, battered but unbroken. In the infirmary, Alara walked among the wounded cubs. Their injuries were minor, burns, bruises, shallow cuts, but their spirits were fierce and bright. They had faced their first true battle and emerged stronger. You fought like warriors, she told them softly. We fought as pack, came the reply, not from one, but from all. Dren found her there, leaning against the doorway. His crystalline mane shimmered with deep violet, the color of pride. You defied orders, he said. I protected them, he nodded once. And in doing so, you proved what no treaty or council could, that our species are stronger together than apart. Alara exhaled slowly. They're ready for more. They are ready, Dren agreed. But so are you, me. You are not just their teacher, Commander Dane, not anymore. His voice softened. You are their alpha. That night, as the twin moons rose over a scarred but unbroken academy, Alara sat among the cubs. They huddled close, sleeping soundly, their dreams rippling gently against her mind. She looked at them, warriors in the making, family by choice, and felt a weight settle on her shoulders. Not the burden of command, but the responsibility of belonging. For the first time, she understood the true meaning of bond guard. It wasn't about teaching. It wasn't even about protecting. It was about becoming, together. And though the battle was won, Alara knew the war was just beginning. The jungle was still recovering from the fire, days after the Vor assault. The wounds left upon Kesherix's surface were still visible from the balconies of the Xanthi Academy. Twisted metal fragments dotted the training grounds. Charred soil bore the scars of plasma strikes. Even the luminous rivers, usually calm and unbroken, glowed a faint orange where heat and chemicals had seared their paths. Yet amidst the ruin, life was rising again. Vines crept over shattered walls, weaving themselves into new lattices. Biotech panels grew back from their damaged edges like scabbed flesh. And in the heart of the training dome, 24 young Kishiri cubs ran drills. Not as trainees now, but as warriors reborn. They moved with a new weight to their steps, a new light in their eyes. They had faced fear and violence. They had bled, and they had won. But none of them, not even Packmaster Dren, had changed as deeply as Commander Alara Dane. After the battle, Alara watched them from the balcony, her uniform stripped of its insignia, her hair windswept and loose. She was healing too. Her ribs still ached from the blow the Vor captain had landed, and the scar on her shoulder would never fully fade. But the physical pain was nothing compared to the storm that churned inside her. The battle had changed everything. The cubs were no longer just students. She was no longer just their trainer. They had crossed a threshold that could never be uncrossed, something deeper than species, stronger than blood. They had become one another's home. Commander. Came a familiar rumble behind her. Dren approached slowly, his crystalline mane pulsing a calm sapphire. You should rest. I've had enough rest, Alara said, eyes still on the training field. Then perhaps it is time you stop watching and start building. She turned to him. Building what? Dren's gaze drifted toward the cubs. A future, the proposal later that day. Alara found herself standing in the council hall of elders. A cavernous chamber carved into the heart of the academy, its walls alive with bioorganic murals depicting the history of the Kishiri species. The air was heavy with incense and authority. 12 elder Kishiri sat in a crescent formation around her. Some had been openly skeptical of her presence since the day she arrived. Others had warmed to her after the battle. All now watched her with silent intensity. "You know why we have called you here," said Elder Vrekthar, the oldest among them. His spines were white with age, and his eyes held the weight of centuries. The Syndicate attack revealed much about our enemies, our vulnerabilities, and our future. Alara stood at attention. "Yes, Elder. The pack you have trained fought with a unity we have never seen," said another elder. "Not among our kind. Not among yours. It was unprecedented. It was instinct," Alara said. "Instinct and trust. They were never meant to fight alone, and yet they did more than fight," Vrekthar said. "They evolved." He leaned forward, spines crackling faintly. "We wish to formalize what has happened, to create a permanent cause, an order dedicated to the bond between our species. Soldiers, guardians, explorers, born not of one world, but two." A silence followed. Alara's heart thudded once hard. "You mean?" "Yes," Vrekthar said, voice deep and solemn. "We wish you to lead the first Bondguard Corps." Becoming Alpha, the words hit her like a blow and a bomb all at once. Bondguard, the name that had been whispered in ancient songs and legends. The name Dren had spoken as prophecy. And now it would be real, not just as myth, but as mission. She thought of the cubs, their fierce eyes, their untamed energy, their unwavering loyalty. She thought of the blood they had spilled and the futures they could forge. And she thought of herself, a soldier from a fractured earth, standing now on alien soil, offered something she had never truly had, a purpose beyond war. "I'm honored," she said softly. "But are you sure I'm the right one to lead?" Vrekthar's gaze softened. "The pack has already chosen their alpha. It is not for us to overrule them." Dren stepped forward, placing one massive clawed hand on her shoulder. "They follow you not because you are strong, Commander Dane. They follow you because you see them, because you walk beside them, not ahead of them." Alara felt the weight of their eyes, their trust, their hope. "Then I accept," she said. "On one condition." "Name it." "They don't just learn from me. I learn from them. The Bondguard Corps won't be humans teaching Kishiri. It won't be Kishiri teaching humans. It will be both, equal, united. A true pack." A ripple of approving light coursed through the council chamber. Vrekthar's spines shimmered silver. "So it shall be." The ceremony of Bond weeks that followed were a blur of preparation. New facilities were constructed, not human, not Kishiri, but a seamless blend of both technologies. Genetic researchers from Earth arrived to study the neural resonance between species. Kishiri artisans forged armor that could adapt to human physiology and Kishiri musculature alike. Most importantly, rituals were planned, sacred rites older than the stars themselves. On the night of the first moon's ascent, the Academy gathered in the Circle of Resonance, a massive, open-air amphitheater carved into the mountain itself. Bioluminescent flora lit the stone in soft, shifting colors. The air thrummed with the hum of countless minds, united in purpose. One by one, the cubs, now nearly grown, approached Alara. Each pressed their forehead to hers, a gesture of packhood older than language. With every touch, she felt their thoughts brush against hers. "We are ready. We are yours. We are one." When Rith came forward last, he lingered. His golden eyes shone with fierce loyalty. "Are you afraid?" His thought whispered, "Not always," she replied. "But not when I'm with you." He pressed his head against her chest, and for a heartbeat, she felt his pulse sync with hers. And then the chorus rose, howls and human cheers, alike, as the council declared the formation of the first Bondguard Corps anew. Dawn months passed, the Bondguard trained together, humans and Kishiri alike, in ways that once seemed impossible. They mastered hybrid tactics that blended Kishiri agility with human strategy. They developed new forms of telepathic communication, capable of linking dozens of minds into a single cohesive network. They even began learning each other's languages, creating a shared lexicon that was neither human nor Kishari, but something beautifully in between. And through it all, Alara stood at their center, not as commander or instructor, but as Alpha. Her days were filled with drills and diplomacy, planning and politics, but her nights were still spent beneath the stars, with the pack, running through the forests of Kesherix, listening to their stories, sharing her own. Each day, the line between us and them blurred a little more. Each day, the future became a little clearer. Epilogue. The legend begins in the anniversary of the Vor attack. A new fleet launched from the surface of Kesherix. Sleek ships, bearing both Federation and Kishari insignias, rose into the skies, not as conquerors, but as guardians. At their helm stood Alara and her pack. Their mission was simple: to patrol the frontier worlds, protect vulnerable colonies, and forge bonds where once there had been fear. But their purpose was greater: to prove that unity was not just possible, it was inevitable. As the fleet vanished into the star-streaked void, Dren's voice echoed through the academy halls, and so it was that the human walked into training, and the cubs leapt from the pack to greet her. And from that leap, a pack was born that would change the fate of two species forever. In the centuries to come, songs would be sung of the Vanguard, warriors who fought not for blood or banner, but for the heartbeat they shared. And at the center of every legend, one name would always be spoken with reverence: Alara Dane, first Alpha of the Vanguard,